People always ask how I balance my family life with 400 shows a year. I'm just doing what I love with the people I love. It's my magic life.
I like Wes Iseli. I like everything about him.
Today we have a up-and-comer in magic, a Fool Us alumni. We have Moxie Jillette, Penn Jillette's child. This is amazing. Penn Jillette has Moxie and Zoltan, and we're going to talk to Moxie today, and I'm so excited. Moxie, thank you for coming on. This is...
Of course! This is so awesome. You guys have like an awesome display behind you, so I know you guys like know what you're talking about.
Well, I love magic. Magic is everything to me. You know, other people have other hobbies. Mine is just magic. So
yeah, this is it for me too. I video game and do magic, and that's about it.
Oh, sweet.
Well, we'll get into that. But I just was doing research on you earlier, just Googling around, playing around. I found a video of you on The View. Were you like
Yes.
2 doing that magic trick?
Well, I was like, what, 2 or 3 when The View aired, so I don't remember it.
You were walking. You were walking.
I was walking. I don't know if the memory parts of my brain were working just yet. And the funniest part about that is I went to a magic camp, not Tannen's, but a very similar magic camp, where the magic teacher, one of the magic teachers there, had to explain to me how I did my own trick, because I didn't understand how I did the trick on The View at the time, because I went to this camp when I was like 11, 12, and then that was when I was like 2 or 3. So it's when I was just starting to get into magic. I didn't understand how I did my own trick.
That's awesome. Awesome.
That is.
So you've been doing magic since you were 11 then?
Yeah, about. I mean, it's always been a part of my life. That's pretty much obvious. I could, walk downstairs. He's not here right now, but my dad would be practicing something or working on something or writing a script when I was really, really young. And now I try to do it as a profession. I do mostly the theater tech side of it because I work for Penn Teller's tech team. But I try to get gigs and stuff. I've got a couple gigs in May coming up for Matt Donnelly actually. So the Mind Noodler, he's great. I love Matt Donnelly. Don't tell him that though. You can't tell him I said that.
Well, we love Matt too. Matt's awesome. Matt's so down to earth. Matt's so likable. He's like a big teddy bear. I love Matt.
Mm-hmm.
But so I just want to. I have a whole list of notes here. So
go for it.
I don't even know if you can. When did you first? Because we have a little girl growing up in show business. Yeah. Around with us. When did you first realize you were different because of your parents?
I don't know. Probably somewhere in middle school, because I was very enthusiastic about telling people, and it led to some bad assumptions and mean kids, and it's in the past, but it's I started realizing that it was a little bit different, and that not everyone had a dad who was on billboards. And I started getting really into it, maybe like truly focusing on it, maybe 8th or 9th grade. So 14, 15. So maybe 4 years ago now. And I was on Fool Us a couple times as a Penn and Teller trick, not as a fooler. People think that I tried to fool them prior, but no, I didn't. But I was on Fool Us. I did an Alice in Wonderland trick. I popped out of a very tiny house. My first appearance was with another fooler, David Gerard. I want to say like season 4 or 5. I don't even know. And I popped out of another tiny box because I was clinically underweight for most of my life. So that's great for magic. And they just put me in a bunch of tiny boxes, and it's like a free show person that you put in boxes. It's great.
So David Gerard used you, but I got confused. Did Penn and Teller use you to come out of box well in their show?
We did. I think it's called Teller's Wonderland. I don't know what season it is, but I know the episode name is Teller's Wonderland, and I am the last Penn and Teller trick that they do in that episode. And they do like an Alice in Wonderland trick talking about Teller's childhood and how his mother kept all of his magic props. and how this house, this tiny little house that they have, this tiny little Alice in Wonderland looking girl, can do all these magical things in this tiny house. And eventually, if you give her enough milk and hide her in the house, she pops out and she's alive and she's big and she's neat. So it was really cool. I had to wear like a really itchy long wig and really, really poofy dress to emphasize the size of the house. And they had to put tiny little glasses on the doll because I wasn't going to not wear my glasses because I needed them. And they put little tiny glasses on the doll. And that's my favorite part.
That's awesome.
That is
That's
awesome.
So,
Yeah.
did you meet David Gerard at MAES? We were talking about having him on the podcast. He was just so excited to have you in that illusion because that freaked your dad out. Your dad wasn't expecting that at all when you popped out.
It's really amazing to me that people don't understand that they truly don't know anything. Like, I'm sure Matt Donnelly talks about this as he's a writer on Fool Us, but it's something truly amazing to me that people think that they would go out of their way to try and learn about these magicians coming on their show. It's almost like a lack of respect for them, that thinking that they wouldn't respect their own show and their own magic to just not research someone and not know who's coming on, you know?
Well, we were having dinner with your dad and Glenn, and I said, you know, if I ever come back, my idea is, and it was just a blow off part of I wasn't even describing a trick. It was just a blow off. And Penn's like, la, 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 la. I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear. I was like, no, this was just the blow off part. He
didn't listen. Yeah, only Glenn heard that part though.
Yeah. Whispered it to him. Yeah. He didn't want anything to do with any of it.
Yeah.
No, so, people walk out of the room. Matt Donnelly talked about this on Penn Sunday School when my Fool Us episode first came out. But they won't even put, like, they have special colored papers that if it goes in the Penn and Teller area, you're doomed. Like, everything has to shut down and Penn and Teller have to leave the building for a little bit just because they don't want any of those papers to cross. When I was on Fool Us, Moxie Jillette was written nowhere. They didn't even want to risk a leak. They didn't want to risk anything. So instead, I went by Roxy J. And Roxy J was everywhere when they needed to talk about me. And Moxie Jillette was never written. They couldn't even afford, because I feel like your eyes as a human will naturally gravitate towards your own name. So they didn't even want to put Gillette anywhere. So it was really cool how much work went into it. I'm trying to, talk about Fool Us more because I haven't gotten a chance to talk about my Fool Us appearance and how much work truly went into it.
Well, even before that, I know you did the Volterra. You did Volterra.
Yes, I also did that on Fool Us. That was hard. That was, oh my God, that was a year in the working, maybe. That took like a year to fully get it working, and lots of little tiny shocks. We got hurt a lot during that process. I think I still have some scars on my fingers from that.
Describe the routine for everybody. Describe the routine for everybody.
The routine is that this, Penn Jillette comes out. He talks and he's like circus voice, ringleader type voice, and he goes, "Well, we found this teenager. They got struck on the head with lightning, and ever since then, through totally humane experiments, we were able to harness the power. And so I'm able to light things up with my body, like putting my hands on like a LED rod and it glows. Lighting things on fire with just like a key in my hand. It's and then the big thing is that I sit in an electric chair and take 2,000 volts of electricity the whole time. And I pop popcorn and all that cool stuff. It's like a circus show. It's a circus carny act. I'm sorry if you can hear my dog barking. Ignore him. But it's like a cute little carny act because, all in all, that's what Penn and Teller want to be. They are carny men. They are carnival people.
That's awesome. So with you being on Fool Us, I know you talked about it in your dad's podcast, but tell Natalie, tell all the listeners all the hoops you had to jump through. Besides Roxy J, there was a lot.
Roxy J was the easiest, obviously, because all they had to do was type Roxy J instead of my name. But so there is some truth to it. I went to Edinburgh Fringe Festival, which is the big festival in Scotland, and it's thousands of shows. They did a bunch of math on it and found that if you went every day to a show, as many as you could in one day for the whole 3 weeks, you'd only be able to see about 300 shows. It's crazy. That's how many shows there are. Not that 300 is a small amount of shows, but and I was doing a show there with a I want to say like online magician called Cameron Young. He's on TikTok and Instagram. I'm sure you can find him. He's the Scottish magician, and we were doing a show called Young and Moxie. And the whole gag of the show was that he was my magic teacher, and that which is true. He was my magic teacher for 2-3 years, not that long, but you know, we had become friends. And we decided to put together a show full of my own magic, full of his magic, and a very, very special trick, which is the Penn Teller cups and balls. We were able to perform the Penn Teller cups and balls on the original table, which that was a pain in the ass, because that is one of the hardest tricks I've ever done. It took, oh my God, 4 months of like every day working on that trick, just getting the moves down. And even then, I still wish we did a little bit better, which every magician thinks, don't they? But the joke of the show that I ended up being better. You know, that was part of the joke, that I ended up being the better magician. And you know, feeds my ego a little bit. But we told my dad we were doing this show and that this was going to be my first real long-term show that I was doing. It was a month that I was staying in Scotland. And we had originally had a show booked in Paris, Saint-Tropez, France, where we were going to do a practice version of Young and Moxie. And because we had never performed this together, obviously he's Scottish and I'm in America, so we never really got to perform together. So we wanted to do one practice show, and that show got canceled for reasons I don't know. I will never find out. But we never told my dad. And that worked out really, really nicely, because then I was like, oh, I gotta leave early for Scotland. I gotta leave early. And I didn't. I had to do Fool Us, obviously, by that point, because Fool Us took longer to set up than the whole show, which I think is really, really funny. So I was going, my dad talks about this, but I was going to just leave in the middle of the afternoon, because he had a flight as well. He was leaving and then coming back for the Fool Us shooting. So I was just gonna leave. I was just gonna go and hide at my boyfriend's house, because that's the only person I knew that would let me stay in their house for 2 weeks without telling them why I was there, because I couldn't tell them because NDAs and all that. But so eventually his flight got canceled, and that made it so much more difficult because he came back to the house, and I was like, oh God, I gotta get a car. I gotta pretend that I'm actually going to the airport. I don't know what I'm gonna do. So I called up one of my mom's friends and was like, you gotta get a car down here. You gotta drive me to the airport. But actually, you're gonna drive me to my boyfriend's house, okay? Makes sense? Got it. So I packed up a fake bag. I, you know, put my little backpack on. I got my little fake ticket. And I'm like, oh, thanks, Dad. I won't see you for like a month. It's going to be really hard. I'm not going to see you. And then I walked out the door super confidently after just lying to his face, that I was going to end up in Paris by the end of the day. And he talks about this, and he is so mad at me, but he's so mad about that he let that happen and wouldn't have suspected anything. So I stayed at my boyfriend's house for 2 weeks, which their family is great, because they were like, oh yeah, sure, you can stay here for 2 weeks, no problem. But the most concerning thing that my dad thinks is really, really funny is that I had gone up to the grandmother, because my boyfriend lives with his grandmother, and I'd gone up to the grandmother and said, I need to stay here for 2 weeks. You can't tell my dad where I am. And she didn't bat an eye. She was like, okay, honey, whatever you need. And eventually she pulled me aside and go, I can't stop thinking about this. I'm so sorry. You've been here for like a week now. Is your father hurting you? Are you okay? Do we need to call someone? Like, do you need help? Well, you can stay here as long as you need. And I go, I'm on my dad's TV show. My dad's a wonderful person. Please don't think. But
Wow.
it was great. She was so mad at me when she saw the episode air. She was like, that weasel.
That's awesome.
Oh my goodness. I love it. I love it. I know it's difficult for you, but the story that you have now is just awesome. I love it.
I like because I maybe shouldn't say this, but I don't know. The room where the Foolers hide is actually underneath the stage. Because they have no reason to go down into the basement underneath the stage. So of course that's the safest place to put the Foolers, put them in an elevator, you walk them on stage, you know? So I was hiding under the stage and I started like, before my show, I started like sobbing and crying and I was so scared because I could hear my dad talking upstairs. Because through the stage, it's a very like, there's like gaps in the stage and I could hear him talking upstairs and I started crying and I was like, oh my God. And Matt Donnelly is there and he goes, you're not here to fool them. I want you to know that. You're here to make them happy. You're here to impress them and just give them a good story and maybe some good TV. And I said, you don't think I can fool them? And
Confidence.
Matt Donnelly loves that because I had done maybe 5 or 6 real shows of just my magic. So this was like the 6th, 7th show that I had ever performed, and I was trying to fool Penn and Teller.
Oh my goodness.
That's crazy.
Go big or go home, right?
Yeah.
I've been performing for 30 years and it was nerve-wracking. So, yeah. No, underneath, when you hear the opening music come on, I mean, it rattles those walls down there. You hear it. You hear the audience clapping downstairs. It's intense. You feel it. Yeah.
Yeah. And my family, the rest of like, besides like my mom and my aunt, I think those are the only 2 people in my direct family that knew that I was coming. So like my grandmother, brother, any other family members that happened to be there, as well as my aunt's family had no idea I was there. No idea. My mom just said, hey, you should go watch Fool Us on this very specific, I think my camera just shut off for a second. There we go. Very specific day. You should go watch. So when I come out, that reaction of them was also real. You can't see them on the film, but I saw it and that was great. I think you could, when I walked out, I could hear my grandmother scream. It was great.
I have to listen for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you hear it?
She punched my boyfriend in the shoulder and goes, you bastard.
How dare you keep this from me?
Because
that's great.
at this point, my boyfriend had figured it out. I wasn't supposed to tell him, but I didn't want to not tell him because I was very proud of myself. So he didn't know, but he knew. He knew where he was going.
You figured it out. Yeah.
So going to Fringe, Edinburgh Fringe, I mean, people work their lifetime to go there. And that was your first show you ever did?
That was my, yeah. And I owe a lot of that. I do owe a lot of that to Cameron, Cammy, who has done Fringe before. He's done Fringe for, I mean, he lives in Scotland, obviously. So I want to say he's done it for like 4 years, maybe 5 years. He's done a show every year. It's one of his most successful shows. It's a really good show. He's really funny. He's for a little bit of an older audience, but he's great. And he was like, I need a partner for this, and I'll pay you and we'll work on this together and this will be our trick. So we met for like, I don't know, when was Fool Us filmed? August 2023. So we were working on it since December 2022 probably, which is relatively short for how long people do Fringe, but I was still in school by that point and I was doing a Fringe show. So that's kind of cool, I think.
So I'm just trying to put all my magic together because you can't know everybody and everything.
Yeah.
part of Young and Strange? Did they not? Are they not together anymore, or am I thinking somebody different?
We were kind of making a Young and Strange joke in the name. We were hoping some older magicians would get that joke. I don't know if they're still together. But other than a couple Young and Strange jokes that we made in the show, that's about all I know about them. It's my knowledge on them is very limited.
But that is the original Young from Young and Strange. That's the same guy, correct?
No, this is Cameron Young. Different guy.
Okay, that's where it was. Okay, I didn't know.
We were making a Young and Strange reference, but we were not Young and Strange.
Okay. Okay, all right. Because I know Young and Strange, but I'm like, I don't know them individually. I didn't know if they were together or not. I have a whole list of stuff, and I want to get to everything. So, as a kid going to school, I'm sure everybody's come up to you asking you questions, and you said it hit you about 14, 15 when you realized you're in a magic family, right? So, what advice did Teller or Penn give to you when you decided you wanted to do magic? Did they set you down?
Well, my dad never wanted to force magic onto me. I think somewhere deep down in his soul that he doesn't have, he really, really wanted me to do magic. You know, he was like, I want my child to carry on the legacy. But my brother had no interest in it. He wants to be a TV comedy writer, I believe. I think he's trying to get into college for it. I don't know. That's a him question. He's not very public about anything, so good luck.
But Bub's posts on Facebook, the kid's got some great one-liners. He's got some funny stuff, dude. I'm like, wow, that's really good.
Yeah, his Twitter and Facebook, man, they are cancelable material that you could do some serious damage to this kid. He had a whole Twitter war with the cutie orange brand, which I think is really, really funny. But me and Zoltan kind of learned really quickly that if you talk about your dad and how successful he is and that he's on billboards in the side of a building, people are going to assume you're a little selfish, too privileged, that kind of thing. So we tried to avoid that because we didn't want that for ourselves. And we do live a very, good life, and we've always had food on the table and all that. But we wanted to, be people beyond just Penn Jillette's kid, because I have a very specific memory of high school, maybe my senior year. It's my last year of high school when I was finally starting to talk about it again, because I would do anything to avoid talking about my father at school because I wanted to just be me. Obviously, some of the teachers knew because they could see my name in all the files, but I tried to avoid talking about it at school. But my senior year, someone goes, "Oh, did you know Penn Jillette's kids go here from Penn and Teller?" And I was like, "No, I had no idea. That's crazy. You think they really go here?" And he goes, "Yeah, and it's wild. My dad works for Chris Angel." And I was like, "Really? My dad also works for my dad works for Penn and Teller." And he goes, "That's crazy. Like that's wild. What I mean, my dad is like I think he said lighting technician. He's like one of the main lighting technicians. What does your dad do?" And I go, "Oh, he's Penn."
That's awesome. That is
so yeah, he didn't want to talk to me again for the rest of the year. But it was great. It was worth it for that just one liner,
Yeah.
Also because screw Chris Angel. But that's that's a personal opinion.
Well, see, I'm asking you all these questions about you and your dad and getting brought up in this. I'm still like a huge fan of your dad. When I'm talking about your dad, I'm like, oh, when I'm texting him, emailing him, you heard it on the Matt Donnelly podcast. I asked Natalie to spell check it and everything, but when I'm hanging out with him, it's just he's so laid back, so cool, so awesome.
I mean, I'm supposed to think this as his child, but he is one of the most down-to-earth, smartest, kindest men I have ever met. And, he is truly amazing. And I mean that as, and also an outsider perspective as also being related to him. And to see him as a father sometimes is also really weird because I'm a fan of him. Obviously, I've watched all of his old stuff. I go to the shows, I work for him, all this. But like to see him be a father and to see him be someone beyond just Penn and Teller and Penn Jillette on stage, because I truly believe that who he plays on stage is not who he is. People think that he's rude and abrasive, and I'm like, my father never. He is truly the sweetest person, and he loves his birds. He feeds some mourning doves and pigeons and stuff out here. And he says he hates our dog, but he truly doesn't, because he has a lifelong hatred for dogs. But when it's just him and Tater, he will talk to my dog. He'll talk to Tater. Just he'll be like, "What are we eating today? What are we doing today, Tater? What are you doing?" And you know, I think he tries very hard to hide this, but he does try very hard to be his father, who was a very hardworking man, and he was a prison guard and sold coins, like trading coins, and you know, he lived a very humble life. He didn't have a lot of money, and you know, just married my grandmother. And my grandmother was also a very scary woman, from what I've told. I was never able to meet her, but very scary woman. She never raised her voice. She was serious about everything, and you know, very very hard-headed, tough woman. And I think he tries to be both of them in his parenting, and I really think that's really cute.
Wow. Wow.
And there goes Tater. Oh my God.
Oh, you're good. You're good. So another thing I was going to get to, when I saw you at that convention, I was texting your dad. Your dad's like, Moxie's there. Go find Moxie. Moxie wants to meet you. I want you to meet Moxie. He was trying to hook us up, meet each other. And when I finally, because we still had masks on, COVID time.
Yeah.
When I was talking to you, some guy behind us, you're Penn's kid? And then it was like all of a sudden you were getting swarmed. And I'm like, oh no, I didn't mean to do that to you. Is that only happen to you at Magic conventions? Or does that happen to you?
Usually that only happens in people who are there for Penn and Teller, or people who are just general nerds of Magic. I don't know anyone my age who gives like a shit about my parents. There's a lot of people my age who didn't even know who Penn and Teller were. My boyfriend, when I first started dating him, he did a bunch of research and watched all the Penn and Teller videos because he didn't know who they were and wanted to like pretend to know what he was talking about when he first started talking to me, which is really cute, and you should do that. But I don't know, people my age don't really care. A lot of a lot of the adults that I grew up with in my life already were friends with my dad or mom, and they didn't really care either. You know, Jonesy, the piano player for Penn and Teller, Michael Godot, who is, I think, my godfather. I don't know. Just all his friends were just surrounded by him, and they didn't seem to care. They were like, "Oh, he's an amazing person," but he's an amazing person because of other stuff, not because of Penn and Teller. So yeah, swarms can happen, but it's only ever happened at that convention and a couple of other Magic conventions that I've gone to.
Well, that was the thing. I heard a guy saying that he was your security guard for another convention, and it got a little shady. Like you got pushed or accidentally pushed, and that was going on. I'm like, golly. So I didn't want to cause it at that other one because I'd already heard that other story before.
Yeah,
like
I mean, it's so, it makes me feel so guilty, but I've had to have a security guard before. Me and my dad have to walk around with a security guard when we go to those places. Because I try to befriend all the security guards at the Rio. I know them all by name because I respect what they do, and I also work the merch booth sometimes. So my face is on display. I'm the one you talk to when you want to buy Penn and Teller merch. And usually people don't really notice. They think I'm just like a face that's selling you something. But every once in a while, I get people who do double takes, and that is really funny to me. Or they try to, this is my favorite thing, and it probably shouldn't be, but it's usually a older man who is trying to impress a date. And he starts talking to me about Penn and Teller, and he pretends to know more about Penn and Teller than me. And I don't like that, because the truth is you don't. So I like talking to those guys and just seeing them connect the dots in their head. But other than that, there's not really swarms. I've had one time where I needed a security guard when I was working merch, but that wasn't even related to who I was. So that was kind of cool. I like when people want to talk to me, but I think that people who are related to famous people or who are famous people are still people and needed to be respected and not swarmed and to be patient and understanding sometimes. And usually sweaty magic nerds don't always understand that.
Yeah, it got intense quick, and I'm like, this. I don't know. I don't. Do you? How often do you deal with that? So living in Vegas, everybody thinks that you live on the Strip and you're hanging out on the Strip all the time. A couple hours from us is Virginia Beach, and I have tons of friends at the beach that never go to the beach, maybe once a year. How often are you? Well, you're working at the Rio, but
Well,
besides
the
that,
Rio is not on the Strip, which people think it is. It's not actually. It's slightly off it. You could
yes.
argue it was on the Strip, but a lot of people think it's not on the Strip. Um, I don't know a lot of Vegas locals who, unless they work in those casinos, go to the Strip very often. I know my mom, she really likes going to the casinos and stuff, not even to gamble. She likes the nice restaurants and she likes meeting people. She's very extroverted, which is the complete opposite of my dad. Um, Very extroverted. She likes talking to people. She likes going to those big fancy restaurants and meeting friends and stuff. But I don't go to the Strip very often. I don't know anyone my age who goes to the Strip, you know. Other than people who work there, I don't really know anyone who like visits very daily, you know.
Yeah, people don't understand that there's life outside that, but you're still in Vegas. I mean,
Yeah,
Henderson.
I like to say that, you have the Strip and then you have like the residential area. And that's kind of just like a little town. We're definitely more of like a desert town, maybe one you'd see more likely in Utah or New Mexico. But, we've got, bowling alleys and theaters. And the only difference I would say about Vegas is that, like, when I went to school, the school that I went to had 3 dispensaries on the same street, and I think that that's really funny. I do think that a lot of kids my age don't understand the severeness of certain drugs and alcohol and stuff, and they might fall into that a little bit easier because of Vegas. That stuff is we're very desensitized to that because you see it on the way to work, or school. But other than that, I don't really know people who visit the. I can hear my dog. Oh God.
You're good. Don't worry about your dog. We're just hanging out. I got a whole. I'm just doing research. Oh, let me tell you this funny story. So my dad had a video store, and Linda Blair came in and signed a poster to him. I still have it in my room. It's behind this closet door.
That's really awesome.
It's great. But your dad was on that movie, and I didn't find it out until this year. That poster was signed in 1985. Your dad was a security guard in this movie, and this movie is called, I have to look it up. This movie is called Savage Island, and your dad was a security
I
guard.
don't know if I've heard of that one. I saw one recently that I'm forgetting the name of, that he was like a tech guy, like a tech genius in it. I don't remember. One of my friends was watching that movie and was like, "Oh my God, is that your dad?" And I was like, "I don't know. It could be."
His IMDb is so long. It's like peeling an onion. It's so much. Yeah, it's so crazy.
That's what he lives for. He loves doing that stuff. And that's his favorite part, is that he gets to be a part of cool, really cool projects. One of my personal favorites that he's in is Borderlands 3. He is Pain and Terror. He's one of the big bosses of Borderlands 3. And I kid you not, I made my boyfriend play with me every night for like 2 weeks. Every night we played, just because he's like a mid-game boss. And I was like, we need to fight him. We need to fight my dad. So I made him play.
Yeah.
I made him play with me so that we could beat him. And it did hurt a little bit to shoot him in the face. It really did. But it was also kind of, it got some of that anger out.
That's awesome. I had seen the Pain
Therapy in a video game. Yeah.
I had seen the Pain and Terror pictures, but I didn't put it with Borderland. I don't know gaming. I stopped gaming.
He's very close with Randy Pitchford, who owns Valve,
Okay.
I believe.
Yeah.
I don't know, one of those big companies.
Well, he also is owner of the castle now too, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, I believe he
Yeah.
owns the.
So doing research and looking your mom up on IMDb, looking your dad up and all this stuff. Did your mom and dad meet on the Aristocrats? Is that about the time they met? Did they meet on that?
No,
Or do you know?
I don't believe they met on that. They might have met during that time period, but the way I was told they met was my mom is very extroverted. She's a very badass woman. You can't, mess with her. She was a producer. She was a producer for big commercials and stuff. She was the woman you talked to if you needed something done. And she walked up to my dad at a meet and greet and goes, "Do you want to go for a drink?" And he says, "I don't drink. I'm so sorry." And she goes, "Okay, how about a coffee tomorrow?" And he goes, "Okay, we'll do whatever you want." And I think they started dating, and I don't know like all the details of the story, but they started dating for a while. And when my mom introduced my dad to her dad, she anxiously walks up to her dad and goes, "Do you like him? Do you think he's nice? Like, I think I'm gonna marry this guy. I think he's really great." And her dad goes, "I don't like him." And she goes, "What? Why? Why don't you like him? Like, I need you to like him. He's wonderful." And he says, "Because I want to date him."
Wow.
And they got married. They got married like maybe a year or two after that, I want to say, and then they tried to get pregnant, didn't get pregnant, and then did IVF with me. So, and then had my brother, and we're 11 months apart. So that's kind of cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Back to back.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you did that whole thing with your mom, because I was trying to give her credits and I wasn't doing good there. So you helped me with that.
Yeah, I don't know like what she does nowadays, because she was a stay-at-home mom for me growing up, but as me and Zoltan got older and more independent and we can kind of do our own thing now, she started working again, and she works currently not currently, but she is one of the, if not the producers for the poker tournament here in town every year.
Oh, nice.
So there's a big, like huge poker tournament here every year, maybe November, December, and she works on that, I believe.
So when I fooled your dad, it was awesome. We did that little challenge thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I go backstage. Penn talked to me afterwards, was awesome. Then they took my mic off and I go down a hallway and I get bear hugged by this lady that said, "When you said you're going down, Penn, that was awesome. By the way, I'm Penn's wife." That's how I got introduced to her. Big bear hug out of nowhere. That was my introduction to her. I immediately fell in love with her.
She gets what she wants when she wants. I call her a little pretty princess, but the truth is, she's like a warrior princess. She'll do what she needs to do.
So your dad has that gruffness on stage. I would never want to cross your mom the wrong way. Your mom, I love her, but golly, I'd be scared.
I truly don't know where the Penn Teller character came from. I think he was just like, "Oh, I'm tall, I'm large. I could be scary if I really wanted to." And I think that's kind of where he got that character. But the truth is, my mom is the scary one. Anytime, the first time I introduced like a boyfriend or anyone that I was dating or interested into, they were never scared of my dad, which everyone thought they would be, but they were scared of my mom. And my boyfriend is still terrified of my mom, in a very healthy way. Me and him have been together for a year now, and still terrified of my mom in a very, very good way. They love each other. They're great. They've got a cute little relationship going on, but he still does whatever she says whenever she says it.
He's not going to step out of line. Yeah.
No. Because I told him the way to impress my parents and to stay in this family is you make my dad laugh and you laugh at my mom's jokes. That is the way you're going to get in, and that's the way you're going to stay.
Wow,
and it's very hard. It's very hard to make my dad laugh too. So I give him credit. He is able to make my dad laugh. So
that's awesome. Getting back to you, did you go and do the tour with your dad, the Fool Us tour? The Foolers tour?
It's weird. I was offered a place in the Foolers tour to tour with them, but I was still working and in school by that point, so I couldn't. Um, but I did end up doing one performance with the Foolers, and I think I have video of it somewhere, and I don't know where it would be, but I could probably find it on my phone. But my dad did Stupid, his rope trick. He's done it on Fool Us. The one he throws rope over their head. It's very funny. The one where he puts rope in his ear. I've done Stupid. I did Stupid in the Fringe Festival. That one was great. But we do a trick together. One of Penn Teller's really old tricks. We did a trick together on Foolers, and it's called Smart Ass. And we did it into a 2-person act, because originally it's just a Penn act. Then we did it into a 2-person act. But it went really well. We did it at this place called Sideshow Gelato. I'm sure you've heard of it. If you're, true Penn Jillette fan, he talks about Sideshow Gelato a lot. We practiced. We did a practice show there. It killed. It was great. And then we went on Foolers and did that, and that was awesome. And that was really, really cool. It was a kind of small audience that night. It was like maybe 150. It was not like a small audience, but it was small for the theater that we were in, and that was really fun to do, just like a funny like card trick with my dad, and that was really awesome.
But that was a big surprise to those people that were there.
Those poor people who did not know I was going to be there. They did not know my dad was going to be there either, because that was like the one-time thing that we were both there.
That's awesome.
Wow.
That's awesome. So, what's it like working at Penn and Teller Theater now? What's it?
Oh, they eat you alive. They will get to the thing that you don't like about you.
Oh my.
They're all, I love them very much. They're all wonderful people, very nice people. But it's a tech team of essentially 4 people, which is a very, very small tech team. For anyone who knows any theater tech, that is super small for the size of the show that we're doing. And it's 4 people, and they're all, middle-aged men who have been doing the same thing of their life for 25 years. And that is hard to just throw a new person into. So I'm essentially like a gopher. I just do whatever they say it, whenever they say it. Currently, I am the stick person. There is a trick in the show that I don't know if they've done on Fool Us, but it's called Balloon Coincidence. And it requires 52 balloons every night. Each that have a card inside, each has a stick attached to the balloon, and then the stick balloons go into these little balls that Teller holds. And it's 52 balloons every night. So it's, oh my God, it is hell to set up that trick, but it is worth it. It's a really, really good trick. And currently I make all the sticks for the balloons. So I hot glue the sticks, I tie ribbon onto it, and then I tie safety pin onto it so they can pop the balloons. And it takes 3 hours to set up one night.
Oh my goodness.
Golly. Wow.
Yeah,
so
bad.
when they're on tour, how many tech do they bring?
They bring those same 4 people. They're on tour right now. Or not like tour, but they're on a small outside of Vegas tour. And they bring those same 4 people and a couple of extra people that they hire to do it. But they also don't bring any big tricks with them when they tour. They are bringing Balloon Coincidence with them this time, so we had to extra prep to get all the sticks and balloons ready, because there's a card in each one of those balloons, but we didn't want to blow up the balloons so they didn't look lame when they were on stage. So they bring those same 4 people and like a couple extras that they hire. Every night, I want to say maybe there's like 8 people working on stage for that, and for the show in Vegas, and also outside, because I think they have a couple of people who don't do the daytime tech. They have just nighttime people who are doing curtains, the fly rail, all that.
So I have never, only when I was on Fool Us have I worked with a union crew. Did you have to be part of a union to join that, to be a part of that?
No.
How does that?
I thought about joining a union because probably what I want to do professionally is not magic. I will still do magic and still perform, but I want to be a theater technician. That's what I want to do. And if you want to get really specific, I want to be a stage manager, which is where I got this shirt from. It's a show that I stage managed. But I don't know. I guess I would have to join a union, but I haven't yet. I don't know the process of joining it, but it is, they have their own little group. They're just, they're a bunch of little guys doing what they need to do.
Yeah, like I said, I've never worked with one. I've only heard stories about logistics. You can't do this, you can't do that, and I don't know. I've never had to work. We do 400 shows a year all over the East Coast, but I've never had to deal with a union crew.
Right.
Usually magicians don't. A lot of magicians usually just work solo with maybe one or two tech people. But I think it's great either way. I think, if you have a big show that needs a lot of tech people, say David Copperfield's show, that's great. Do what you need to do. If you want to be a solo magician who does your own tech, that's great too. Both are great.
So how long you been at Penn Teller Theater? How long you been doing that?
Since October of last year. Not super long, but long enough that I've gotten the hang of it.
Nice.
And so I listened to the podcast with you and your dad, and I loved it so much because I'm a dad, and I'm hearing Penn talk about how proud he is of you, how much he loves you, and how much he was just proud of you going out there and talking about your wins, and just it made my heart feel. That's when I reached out to you and I was like, hey, I got a project. I want to put you in as well, because it was just that I want more of that love. I want to hear more of that.
I mean, I like if I die and people just understand more about how much of a good person and a parent he is, and not just the gruff, scary person he is on stage, I'll be happy with that. I'm happy doing that, because my mom she's not very public either. I'm sure you can find her like Facebook or whatever, but she's not a very public person either. And neither is my brother. So I feel like as long as people understand that he's like truly a good person, a lot of people were getting upset with me in like Instagram comments because they didn't agree with his political beliefs. And I go, well, he's not this party anymore. I don't want to say what it is because I don't want to be offensive.
You're good.
He's not that party anymore. He's changed and grown, and people were really surprised that he would do that. And it's just like, he truly believes that like change is the best thing that we have, that, time goes on and time moves, and that, you can just change and be a good person. And if you mess up, you can, be better.
Moxie, he was there for me during the pandemic. My wife is pregnant. I got twins on the way. I'm unemployed.
Mm-hmm.
He reaches out to me. I'm on the treadmill. He just texts me something. I texted him. He responded something. And he's like, how you doing? I'm like, I'm unemployed with twins on the way. And it was just, this too shall pass. That's all he said.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt this come over me. Like, Penn gave me a big hug, and he's like, that's so true. It's so, yeah, thank you, Penn. It meant the world to me.
Anytime, I mean, it does hurt sometimes. Sometimes you want to like wallow in it. Sometimes you want to get upset. You want to get angry. But the truth is that it's like, this too shall pass. And sadly that also applies to happiness. But, it's very comforting for, I've had a couple of bad breakups, as anyone has. I've had I've lost people to death, and it's just, this too shall pass. It comes in waves and life goes on. And I think that's probably the best lesson he's ever taught me. And no one else agrees with me. Everyone else that I know my age that went to school with me was very upset that I would tell them that advice. And they were like, well, why you?
Oh, no, I lost her. I lost her completely. And we're back. Where were we at, Natalie?
We were talking about this too shall pass and how it wasn't possible for you to give that advice.
This too shall pass. My phone died. So it's okay.
So that's exactly what your dad said. We were having dinner with your dad and Glenn, and I told him that really meant the world to me, because I was a panicked dad. I have twins on the way now. We didn't find out until we were going to do the.
We went in for our first ultrasound at 5 months. 5 months pregnant, and found out.
Wow.
Never knew it was twins, because they found one heartbeat and they were like, "Yep, you're good." And then
They
when I
scan with
bled
that tool
ultrasound-
left to right. They never went to the right side because there was never any need to.
Right.
The American medical system, truly a joy to witness.
But I was freaking out. I'm unemployed, twins on the way, and I text your dad, and he says that. And I told him and Glenn that night that meant the world to me. And he said, well, remember, that's for good things too.
Yeah.
And you just said that. So yeah,
Yeah.
exactly it.
I mean, it is a little like, it does, because no one else will tell you that advice. No one else that I've ever heard or talked to, not even my therapist, has told me, you'll get through this. This too shall pass. Even with happy things, especially. So it's so jarring to hear it. Like, it was so jarring to hear it for the first time when I was going through a really, really big breakup. And I was like, this is the end of the world. I'm dying. This is it. He was like, this too shall pass. I'm like, why would you say that? That is so rude. How dare you assume that this will get better? And it did. And I'm here now. So it did pass and it got better.
But it also resonates because of who it was, and because I look up to him so much. It meant more to me coming from him. If it came from some lady at the grocery store, I mean, it wouldn't mean anything, It meant the world to me.
Thanks, lady.
Right. So you were talking on the podcast with your dad about doing some close-up gigs and things like that. Do you have close-up gigs under your belt? Are you thinking about doing?
Yeah, I've gotten, again, I'm more focused on theater tech, but I have done a couple of gigs. My favorite one was one that I did for Teller's neighbor. And it's really, really funny because they had hired me just because Teller told them to hire me. And I was freaking out. And someone goes, do you know Teller lives right next door from Penn and Teller? And I was like, no, that's crazy. So the whole time they didn't know, anything about me. And just we're talking about Penn and Teller and how Teller lived next door and how that was so cool. And that I was a magician and I should go meet Teller someday. And I was like, yeah, I'd really love to meet Teller someday. That would be really awesome.
So what is your relationship with Teller? How is that?
People assume that they're brothers, which I think is really funny. They're not brothers. They're really close friends. But even I wouldn't even say friends sometimes. Sometimes they're just business partners. And when, this is kind of sad, but when Teller had his heart attack and they had to stop the show in 2023, early 2023, I want to say January, February, he had a heart attack and had to get quadruple bypass, which is very scary surgery. And he was so high on all the meds possible. And it was the first time I'd ever seen my dad like scared and worried. And it was weird because he's an emotional, sentimental person, but he's still he's got that like brick wall. He's not going to tell everybody about it. But it was the first time I've seen him like truly consider Teller his best friend. And it was very hard to see. I remember I have videos of me and him trying to learn a new magic trick in the hospital. He's like hooked up to all these devices. He's got like the oxygen next to him, and we're trying to learn a magic trick because he wanted to show the nurses. I have a video of him because I have this plush bear that I take with me everywhere. It's kind of a joke, but at the same time it's not. And his name is Cliff. And I was like, maybe Cliff will help Teller. And I have this video of Teller just kind of examining Cliff and then holding him. And I think that's really cool. He's what, 70, 75 at the time, 74. So it was very funny to me to see this 74-year-old man holding on to a little plush bear.
High on drugs.
I know.
Yeah. Wow. But what is your relationship? What was your relationship with Teller? Because I know Penn's.
Mine, I mean, he's always kind of like, he's always been there for me. And it's not in the same way of people like, he's always been there for me. He's just kind of been there and part of my life. It's never been something that I've questioned. He built my crib growing up. I mentioned that on Fool Us. There's photos of it, I think. He taught me a bunch of magic, something I also mentioned on Fool Us. And, he's just been he is really, really smart. He is as smart as people think he is. And he's really funny. When we brought my family backstage and my boyfriend and his family after Fool Us, he does a very similar thing to my grandma, and he goes up to my boyfriend and goes, "You sneaky bastard, how dare you?" Because at this point, you know, my boyfriend is very close with my dad and Teller, which is terrifying, and that's a hard thing to do for anyone who's dating me. But it was to the point that Teller had known, like, that it's okay to poke fun at my boyfriend at this point. And because I don't think he's met any of the other people I've dated. So I think that it's really great that he was like able to trust me and my boyfriend enough that it was okay to poke fun at him, and that it was okay to poke fun at me and just like pester me about Fool Us. And you know, I work very hard to try and develop new tricks and stuff with them during the rehearsal, and my own tricks. And it's very fun to watch him work and just talk to my dad. And he is truly super smart. He is a lot quieter than people would think. People would think that you go off stage after not talking and just talk everyone's ears off. But he is pretty quiet. He's very mellow. But you know, maybe, you know, I met him very late in his life. Maybe he talked a lot more growing up. But he's truly, really, really amazing. He is so funny, and so naturally funny too. He can just say something and people will erupt in laughter. It's really great.
Yeah, it's stupid for me to say how much I love him, but yeah, I've known him since I was 12 years old. I did a podcast this morning before yours, and I was just saying, who's your favorite? Well, Copperfield had a special every year as a kid, right? And then when I was 12 years old, I got a hold of Penn Teller Go Public. And now, as a 12-year-old kid, it's blood and roaches, and your dad's tearing up that grocery store, juggling and just making a mess. And that's awesome for a kid to see, this anarchy magic type thing. And then it's been, you know, just Penn and Teller ever since, man.
Yeah.
When I teach magic lessons to kids, I teach in some homeschool groups, 750 families in this one school I teach at. And I show them Copperfield, and they get bored. They don't want to see dancing girls. But you show them Penn and Teller upside down on Saturday Night Live, or you show them getting run over by a truck.
That's like one of my favorite bits. I love when they're upside down on SNL.
They go crazy. The kids just love it. I mean, it holds up. Penn and Teller are just legends. Yeah.
My favorite story about that upside down SNL, because obviously I wasn't even a thought in my dad's mind by that point, is that, you know, where he tosses the light bulb through the, like, I think it's a hoop. He tosses the light bulb. He was not able to get that ever in rehearsal. He failed it every single time and broke hundreds of light bulbs. And then the second the cameras go on, he nails it. He does it perfectly. And that's something that I do too. And I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about being in front of an audience or being in front of a camera. The second that camera goes on, or the second you walk out on stage, you are so much better of a person and so much better of a performer when you go on. And I'm sure that's something no other people share. Everyone, you know, everyone's knees shake and they get nervous. But when me and my dad walk on stage, we're different people. And that's like, the lights are there. That's the best version of yourself. And that's what happened with Fool Us. They do a rehearsal with Penn Teller not even in the building. They do a rehearsal of your trick. Just one more time, just make sure it's really good. We'll, you know, where you're going to look, the cameras are. So it's your first time on the stage. And my rehearsal sucked ass. And I can't even like downplay that. It was the worst performance I've ever done. I couldn't find the cards that I needed. I was missing cards. I couldn't remember my script. I didn't have any funny jokes. They debated pulling me. After all this work, they debated pulling me because of how bad it was. And I walk out on stage, and not to brag, but my Fool Us episode is the most popular Fool Us episode ever, period. And that's pretty awesome. I'm just like my dad. I do not give a shit about good television, but that is really awesome to me.
Wow, that's really cool. That's really cool.
And here, this is me bragging, but I have him on the ready.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. His name is Reginald.
Nice.
I love it.
Do you have the nameplate? And what is the nameplate for your?
I don't have the nameplate yet. They haven't sent it to me. I don't really know how to receive that, but I don't even need it. This is all I need, because my favorite thing to do is to hide this around the house for my dad to find. And he hates it. I've hidden it in the fridge because he's kind of like a night snacker. He likes snacking when he gets home from work at like 1 or 2 a.m. So I've hidden this in the fridge. I've hidden this in his cute little nut drawer because he eats a ton of nuts, and I put it in the nut drawer. I've hidden it in his office, in his closet, in his clothing, on top of his like vinyl collection. It goes everywhere, and this means everything to me, my trophy.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Hilarious, yeah.
I just didn't know if they put the Roxy J on there or.
No, I wish they put Roxy J. That would be awesome, because then it's like funnier, because then the idea is that I stole it, and I think that's funny.
Well, you get the story, dude. That's been an hour already.
I know.
I hope I didn't talk about your dad too much, because
no, that's what I'm here for.
No, but I want to talk. I can interview your dad sometime. But seriously,
speaking of my dad, he just did 10 lessons on Duolingo. I just got a message from Duolingo going, Penn Teller just did 10 lessons.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Hey, thank you so much for doing this.
Of course. Please reach out to me. You're gonna get your most direct line with me on Instagram. But please reach out if you want to talk again. This was really, really fun.
And we're gonna be there next week?
Yeah.
23rd. You should, please. I'll be in town. I think for that, 23rd is the Friday? What is it? I don't know. Saturday. I might be out of town. Who knows? But I will still hook you up. I've got people. Don't worry. I know a couple guys.
All right. Only thing left we have to say is see you next week.
See you next.
Check us out online at wesiseli.com and patreon.com/Wes_Iseli for behind-the-scenes videos, blooper videos, never-before-seen footage, discounts on merchandise, magic trick tutorials, and more. That's Wes Iseli, spelled WESISELI.